Hi. Hi, Doxy. Look at you. Look at you. How you
I'm
doing?
extra pale.
How you doing? I mean, you look better than Neil.
What?
You look better than Neil.
Nobody looks better than Neil. He's a little handsome moonbeam.
No. So,
I would be offended, but I'm not.
okay. So, Doxy, your character, as we had said, was waiting in the tavern for some boys to come and join. The soldiers, the master rank and the magister rank soldiers to come and join. But you were spending some time while these two were getting acquainted with one another, your companions here, to kind of distract him and lead him away from the conversation. That inevitably led to him being like, let's check out the kitchen. And him actually kind of like frying up some cooking up some really good food. And you just kind of getting a little bit lost in conversation, like trying not to be rude to this guy who's now offering you, oh yeah, I'll make you guys some great food. And don't worry, I'll give you
being too good at my job.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, I really need to be out there, but he's really hooking us up, so I should probably be polite to him. You know what I mean? So you ended up staying there. When finally you ate some genuinely delicious food, I mean, we're not talking like, not the food that you get when you're inside Ascaria. Let's be serious. That stuff is all like, 6-star out of 5. But you're
Food's good enough to provide temporary buffs.
No. We're not playing an MMO. And just for asking, you take -5 to your intelligence. No, it's not.
Could you imagine how fucked we'd be if all of a sudden not a -5 to my intelligence?
Hi guys.
Hello.
You want to do it in my hole? You want to do it?
Which
Give
one?
me money. Let's
Which
go.
one? More money for back one.
Less money for boot hole. More money for back door.
Oh man.
And this is how we broke Scott. This right here.
Well, I mean, you got mouth hugs. You got,
I
Doxy,
told Twitter, I said the party started now.
It's dirty. You're a dirty girl. All right, so moving
Scott's
on.
getting hot. Has to take the jacket off. Woo!
Sad. Oh man. No, I'm just got a Corona, so I'm getting a little warm. No.
Oh yeah.
So
right.
you you come out like finally like, oh thanks, that's great. And you go out there and you can see they're long since gone, and you're like, ah shit. But as you kind of like walking through the door actually opens up again, and a different soldier pops their head in and starts calling for the innkeeper. Kind of past you towards calling the innkeeper's name. And,
I would move myself aside.
Well, they're like through the back door, so I imagine it's like, oh, he's through there. And he says, "You mind passing a message along for me?"
Of course.
Let him know that the Magister said that a couple of boys inside the barracks, they need some help finding where that guy got shot in the ass.
Roger.
He's like, see you around, I hope.
Curtsy.
No, my name's Franklin.
And so he goes, and I imagine you tell the
Yeah.
tavern owner, and he's like, oh.
I'd give a direct quote and do an impression of him.
It's a really good impression, and he laughs. He's like, oh, that's Phil. And so, I think speaking of Phil, so he's actually like,
More money for back.
More money for back door.
So he's like, the boys that he's talking about, that's probably your friends that you were just sitting with. Want to come along? To which Chrysellen says,
Yes.
More money for back door.
it's going to take her a few minutes.
I'm sorry. I have a fever. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry,
you're fine.
Dogs.
Fine. Just don't cough into the microphone. I don't want to get it through my ears. So it's going to take you a few minutes to kind of get over to where they are. So pick it up with you where you boys left off. You grab the burlap sack that had like the name Stick written on it, and you dump it on the ground. And what falls out of it is soldier's uniform for. My apologies, not a soldier's uniform. You find common clothes for just a regular person that might live in this region, sized for a regular sized human or parent or whatever that might be, kind of sitting inside there.
Out of curiosity, do they look like they would have fit him well?
The guy that you honestly, you don't know because you're not. The corpse is over there, and it's not like you were.
And also, Well, you know, I mean,
Hey, his body would have, changed.
yeah, it's
a
shrunk
little,
down. Obviously, you account for that when you do the guesstimation there.
Sure. Of course.
Can I
but
roll- can I
you
roll
think
pathology?
that guy was about average size? This is about average size clothing. You think that would probably fit him? You mean
Right.
Oscar himself happens to be a big boy, so this wouldn't fit Oscar. But for an average sized person, that definitely would fit them. What were you asking, Josh?
I'm gonna lay them out, like painstakingly, try to lay them out like someone's wearing them on the floor.
Okay.
And I'll look at Oscar and I'll say,
Yeah.
Oscar, if you're not accustomed to using scrolls, where would you keep yours if you had to fight and defend yourself, but then possibly need to grab something and use it, something that you might not be as familiar with?
I'm gonna take a quick look at his other possessions. Does he have any weapons on him?
Yep, he did. Yep. Funny enough, you do actually find for this person the weapons that they had with them were a dagger and a short sword. Short
Dagger
swords
and
are
short
great
sword.
because they're easy to hide.
So short sword probably was on hip. Realistically, dagger could have been stored anywhere. Realistically, is there anything indicating where he would have kept that short sword, or was it just kind of a keep it?
So there was no belt strap or anything like
Right.
that. So very likely they could have carried it literally in hand after they took it out of wherever they were hiding it.
Yeah. Okay. Which hand did you find the ash on?
Which hand? Left or right? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter.
Okay. That
both,
one.
Both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both makes it harder.
The scroll would kind of like be consumed simultaneously.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay.
Well, if he was right-handed, then realistically, sword comes from the left side. Draw that. If he was wielding a dagger as well, probably would have been on his right side. If I were keeping a scroll, realistically, I'm not an average soldier, but thinking about how average soldiers work, belt is the most common. I mean, realistically, where you access anything you intend to be a weapon is going to be at about waist height or on arm, or maybe around chest, or possibly on back. It's not going to be low on the legs. That's just inaccessible. Looking at torso, maybe upper pants.
Okay. So here's the thing. The clothes looked like they were disguised.
Yes.
I'm gonna start looking into the pants and checking around waist level to see if there's any like compartments that they sewed into the inside seam. Okay, perception.
So what you end up noticing is the waist, so the area above the crotch to the top of the actual pants itself is a little bit longer than would be typical. I don't know if you remember this from like our college years, but all girls would always wear, before yoga pants were a thing, all girls would always wear like sweatpants, but then roll them up so they were nice and tight. It's like that sort of a thing where you can imagine actually at the top of the pants, that right along the waist, they could roll it up so it would actually sit at a normal height. You know what I mean? Like where it was, because it's a little bit longer, a little bit more slack. And investigating that a little bit further, you do find a little bit of parchment kind of like caught in that area. They could have put like almost like a scroll or something there and then just like rolled it into itself so you wouldn't ever see that there was something hidden there.
I still 1,000% do that with my fat pants, by the way.
There you go. You're also the same age as us, so...
Much cuter. So I'm gonna take.
Fair, he's right.
Very true. Accurate statement. No complaints here.
Quit it.
No. Will is the Neil here. Sorry.
So I'm gonna hold the parchment up, paper up, and I'm gonna do the spend one magic point to sense if it was magical at all.
Yeah, please.
So I mean, it just happens.
Oh yeah,
Unless
I
you
always
want me
think,
to-
I always think you have to roll. I'm so sorry. It's just
No,
the system.
It
So
just
my
tells me if
you
it was
spend the one
magical and
MP,
like strength.
You
Yeah.
spend the 1 MP, and it's like we're talking the facts that you're able to pick up trace amounts of magic on this is simply because how many years you've spent training for your study in enchantment and like enchanting items and artifacts and so on and so forth in the past. It is very, very faint. Like the amount of cocaine you'd find on a random $1 bill.
All right. So, this is I'll hold up that little piece of parchment and I'll show Oscar and I'll say, "This was it." It's been so long. The magics are fading very rapidly. I barely got a sense of it.
Not useful to us in this moment.
No, I could try to figure out what it was.
Did
But-
the other one have any ash on his fingers?
No. And the wounds, I would assume, a fighter. He
You
was
would
up
assume
front.
that he was fighting. Don't
Okay.
assume he was a fighter.
All right, that's fair.
Let's
That's
take a look
fair.
at his things first, and then we can determine that. I'm gonna go grab. I'm gonna go grab Slash's bag, and take a look at the contents. See weapons again, looking for what kind of weapons they have and clothes.
As you're dumping that bag out and starting to parse through it, which I'll have you roll for, this is when Chris Allen will actually come to the door and walk in. Now, Chris Allen, one thing that is important that you did miss from this last part, unless you heard my description of the statue when they came into the room. Okay, so when you do first walk into the room, you're taking in, this used to be an old temple, which was told to you guys last session, but the in the corner of, oh, my apologies, you actually came in here before when you spoke to them, so you would have seen this before when you came into this room before speaking with the Magister. In the corner of this room, there is a statue that's standing about 5 feet tall, maybe a little bit shorter than. The base of it is stone, but the whole thing itself looks like it was probably carved out of one thick tree, right? So a little bit under 5 feet is a woman that's standing there naked. She is, as I said, squat, and she's, kind of like thick-hipped and everything. It's a pregnant woman. While she's all carved out of wood is generally brown, right? She's been colored to be green, though that coloration is very faded. Her hair is a very, very light green, almost like a greenish yellow. Once again, very faded. However, on her breasts and her extended belly, because of looking pregnant, is very blue with little areas that seem to be like brown and green, representing almost like a land on a map. There's a little, I think I missed this last time. There's a little bit of like white brushing across that too. It gets so faded off, so like distressed, that you imagine could have represented clouds or the like as well. You can, just like as Laszlo did earlier, roll a historical lore check to see if you know what this statue was.
Okay, if it's not that, then it's just flat intelligence, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Whoa, golly.
And the queen has arrived. Sorry, Rena. Whoop, you're out. Yes,
No.
queen. Yes, queen. Oh, man.
There's room for 2 queens.
8.
If you play your cards right.
Fucking call me.
Welp. It's got dislodged. So you actually know exactly who this is. This is Mother Gerda. She is, just to once again reiterate her titles, because you didn't hear it earlier. She is known as Mother of Mortals, Mother of Magic, Mother of the Divine, the Great Mother, Mother of All. She is literally a goddess that is believed where the world came from. You know Doxy a little bit more than What's-His-Face did. You know that not only is she a goddess that's less worshipped, you actually know that she, and as well as many other gods that are not really worshipped anymore, were predominantly worshipped by a lot of human nations that existed on the central and eastern parts of Eroth, of the continents. The western parts of Eroth, not as much, because that's mostly where you're finding things like the gnomes and whatnot kind of in this region. So, and the humans over here had the other gods that they worship, which are now rather prolific throughout the world. But the central and eastern parts, they used to worship these gods so much more. However, as the Paradil raised many cultures, destroyed their history books, so on and so forth, they were able to kind of like quash down and hide the existence of a lot of these gods. So maybe those gods never existed, maybe they were just false gods, or maybe they're just being suppressed, whatever the case may be, who knows. You just know that on this half of the continent, they're not very well worshipped. But you do believe over in the Dale lands, they still have a pretty high prevalence.
Okay.
You know, over on the other side. That's very separated from you. Anyways, back to where we're going. You can walking into the room, just seeing a bunch of stuff kind of like lied out on the floor, and Laszlo finishing, looking it over, watching, what's his name there? Oscar. As Oscar dumps out a bunch of supplies out of a burlap sack, some clothing and stuff like that.
And I am laying it out like Laszlo did as well, just as a note there, to mimic what Laszlo has done so that Laszlo can also come over and help me take a look at things a little bit more closely.
Like on a morgue table?
No, this is literally on a floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're on a barracks floor right now. This is
Okay.
So specifically what I was looking for was, I'm essentially trying to get a sense of whether or not this guy was a fighter, whether or not he would have been casting magic, military tactics stuff, basically.
Okay, so Chris Allen walks in the door. I don't know if you guys want to address that, then we can go back to your search result.
I would take a moment actually to admire the statue.
Okay. Like I said, you probably saw it before, but you were so distracted by the boys that you didn't,
Right.
By the magister and everything. That you didn't
Daddy needs her dick wet, is all I'm saying. But yeah, now she can properly take notice.
Okay, so you go
Oscar
over there and
would
just kind of
notice.
like wave to the boys, and then like walk straight over to the statue. You guys probably wave back. It's only been less than an hour since you saw her. So then you go back to your work, and with your result there, Oscar 15 and him aiding you. And I believe beforehand you rolled and got a bonus when you were checking out the people, when you checking out the corpses, right, with your stunt die?
Yeah, he took
Yes.
twice. Didn't you take it twice?
So one of the things
Advantageous positioning twice.
One of the things that you notice is that the sword here is a little bit different than the other guy's sword. It's not just a basic short sword. It actually a bit of a curve to it and whatnot. It actually doesn't strike you as being too terribly different from a Maltese blade. As a matter of fact, it might be in a Maltese blade. Thinking about the arm of the person that this would have belonged to, Slashes was their name, the arm of the person this belonged to, that person very likely was a right-handed warrior, meaning they would have done everything else in their left hands. So that's probably where your focus would be. Looking over the clothing and seeing where stuff might sit, you actually are able to find that somewhere along the thigh, on the left thigh, there is a little bit of a little flap with a small hidden pocket, a thin, long pocket that was inside there, though there is nothing that rests there now. Again, it's not like this is crazy difficult to find of an item, but definitely the pocket sits between two fabrics of clothing, two layers which would keep you warm, right? As opposed to what we have in like our common denim or jeans, which is like, you see it flapping inside your pants. So it is a little bit more discreet and something that somebody could have overlooked.
Right. Laszlo?
Is it like wand size?
Yeah, little finger in there.
Yeah. I'll take my wand out and I'll just slide it in and slide it back out. Like,
your wand is smaller than that wand would be because of how you've kind of like retooled it over time. But yeah, it definitely would sit there comfortably. And honestly, with how that wand is sitting in there, you can even like grab the pant leg and move it. It's in a good spot on the thigh that it would not affect somebody running. Wouldn't apply undue pressure where it might snap or something like that.
So I'll put by the way, he carries his wand when he's not thinking about it, just like behind an ear, because it's actually looks very much like a pencil.
I cannot wait to cast Gust of Wind on you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I just go, it seemed like they both were carrying magic items then.
Yeah. But this one was a fighter. That's a Maltese blade, I believe.
Multi. So you think he took it? Maybe? Or do you think they came here with it?
Oscar just kind of shrugs at that. Could be either.
Okay.
With enough preparation, previous ratings, it's hard to tell. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
I am gonna look over the blade. Does this appear to be like, just statistically speaking, is this like a short sword or is this more of a?
It's more like a short sword, a bit of a curve to it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So it's
okay,
just a specific design. I mean,
Fair
it's
enough.
not like it's a.
Yeah. So he's gonna look at that, and he's actually going to hold on to it just for the minute and just kind of get a feel for it, see how it sits. Not really his thing, you know. This is not his type of weapon.
But not unlike one that you've held many times beforehand. There's a specific
yes.
branch of the military that uses this kind of weapon.
Mm-hmm.
The Gish.
Yeah. Had a feeling that was going to be the case. It's a
Do you
Gish
mind?
weapon.
Oh.
It's a Gish weapon.
I haven't really run up with many. I haven't really seen or met with many Gish, except for when I first got here, going across the border.
Well, that would be time, wouldn't it? Well, there are standard magical focused soldier. So it's not a surprise that he was using a wand in conjunction with this. He was probably trained to do exactly that, fight and wield magic.
Scott, I know it's really hard to tell at young ages. Did they look parent? Or did they look like? Could we not tell because of
the people definitely looked like, well, they're young, so they could be parent, they could be human, and again, their features, you'd have to go back and really look to see if that was a specific thing you were looking for. They look like they'd be parent or human. They were young either way. And to answer a question in chat from Ollie, what is a Gish? Gish is a term specifically for a soldier that is trained both in magical arts and in fighting, usually melee fighting, but not just, hey, I can cast spells and can wield a sword, but specifically can use them interwoven with one another, magically enhancing their blades or using spells to defend themselves while they're, it's just synergenetic combat. And also Gish is an old school gamer term for that kind of a character, which is why I took that old school gamer term and made it a branch of the military in this country. Go ahead.
So, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this, but Gish tend to use it synergistically. And he's going to hand you the blade and just say, if you can sense residual magics on a piece of parchment, maybe you can sense some residual magics on this blade if it was enhanced anytime recently. I don't know if that's how your magic works, but I feel it's worth asking.
Of course, I'll take the blade that's far too big for
Oh, yes.
my character.
Oscar's still holding it just so that you don't have to, yeah.
I'll just say, yeah, sure, lay it down right here.
Sure.
And then I'll put the little piece of parchment next to it. And then I'll go, this will take a minute. And Scott, I want to cast, for the first time ever, identify on these things. I think, let's see. Ignore the name because I think I spelled it wrong.
And 2 stunt points on a spell again.
Identify.
Yeah.
Oh,
I misspelled it. I just noticed it when I was like, okay. Oh, wait.
I love it. Identify. A classic Glasgow spell.
Leave it to the author to find it.
So the casting time is a minute, but I can extend it, it extends the time a minute to add additional items for an increased cost. So I don't have to cast it multiple times.
So you also skillful casting can reduce the cost. I don't know if you saw that with your stunt points. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Well, I'm just before we get to lowering it. So the normal cost is 2. It's +1 for every additional item. I want to cast it on you might want to go into my page to look at the description because it's very different than 5e identify.
Yeah, that's fine.
But the main thing I want to notice is for the parchment, if it was temporary or permanent.
So give me 1 second. Where is identify?
I fixed it.
There it is. Right.
Well, that's why you couldn't find it. You fixed the name.
I will read this aloud. It is probably about 2 paragraphs, so bear with me, everybody. Because it's a system that not everybody knows. We are playing, of course, Fantasy Age. So, you cast the spell and touch an item. If the spell is successful, you immediately know if the item is enchanted, whether if it's temporary or permanent item, and to have a general sense of the nature of its enchantment. If the spell test fails, you do not gain any information about the item. So the GM may wish to make a test secretly, so you don't know if the item is enchanted or not. If you simply failed, you just simply failed to obtain any information. At higher degrees, you gain additional information about enchanted items. You're not a journeyman, are you?
I am a journeyman.
Oh, at journeyman, you learn the item's rarity as a measure of its power, and you can also make an additional TN, which is a target number, 11 perception to determine if the item is cursed. So more than just cursed, I would just say more information. Why don't you roll me a TN 11 perception check for me to give you some additional information, okay?
All right, so this will be a +2 because I do have a focus in our enchantment.
Okay, cool.
So 15.
And you have 3 stunt points. It doesn't say that you don't get to use those, but let me see if I'm okay with you using stunt points on this. I'm going to say yes. I'm fine with you using stunt points for exploration if you'd like.
Okay. I think the main thing is going to be speed. I'd like to speed it up. So it would be efficient search. Mm-hmm. No, speedy search. So it takes half the time it would normally take, and then one advantageous position.
Beautiful. I know exactly how to use this. So more or less, while you're sitting there, and you can affect your MP because were you doing the other one where you?
It takes 2. It takes 3, and I was able to deduct it by 1. So
perfect. Thank you. So you're sitting there and you're kind of doing this spell. Can you describe the actual casting of this and how your character goes about it? Because Chrisellen and Oscar have never seen it.
Okay. So the first thing he does is he lays those 2 pieces down in front of him, and he looks around the room, and noticing that no one's there, he takes the goggles off. And he'll sit down in front of the 2 thing. He'll kind of kneel down in it like he's doing a prayer above them, and he'll just have 2 hands over the 2 items. And I don't know if you want to say this, but it's almost like you can sense the like magical auras that over it as he's like empowering the magics of the items, so he can get more of a sense of what they originally were. And in his hands, you can see under the scarring. You can see almost electricity kind of running up and down underneath the skin as he's doing it on his hands.
Oscar is watching extremely intently on this. He's essentially gauging how Laszlo casts magic in a way that's like, if Laszlo were looking, maybe a little bit intimidating.
Wonderful. he's like, I'm watching you intently in case I need to know your chinks in your armor.
That's pretty much. Yeah. But it's instinctual.
Is that what Identify does?
That's what Identify does, yes.
Identify.
I love it. Thank you, Doxy. That was great.
Oh, beautiful. Why does it feel like what's the word I'm looking for? Deja vu. But I feel like Doxy made that joke before. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Moving on.
I'm hilarious, and I make very funny jokes all the time.
It's probably just because I just assume you're always being funny. So you I meant specifically the Identify joke, just to be clear. But so when you cast a spell on these different objects, and you also include the parchment of paper, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so with that parchment of paper, first and foremost, you are able to specifically identify that was, in fact, a scroll. Moreover, you're able to find out that it's a spell from your old training of magic, something that would have been called Shocking Grasp. So that would have been something that required somebody to get up close. That would have been a melee attack. As for the other items, you're actually able to find the trace amounts in the pants that definitely was something magical that was stored here for a while. The sword itself also has a bit of lingering magic to it. It seems as though whoever used this sword, often, time and time again, much like if you were to many times over your life do the same task over and over again, it would carve neural pathways that make it so it's so routine that it just normally sits, that it recalls very easily, like say riding a bike. Whoever had this sword beforehand would have enchanted it so many times over and over again that just like the magical pathways, the grooves that it kind of left into it as you're perceiving them are identifiable. But more important than that, it seems not to have the same kind of magical pathways of your previous training. It's strange and different to you. It has almost the flavor of the newer magics that you understand, rather than that old stuff, even if the wand is different.
Okay. So this takes a minute while he's doing that, and then you'll see for a second his eyes were open the whole time, and remember they're these big giant black orbs. And then he just blinks and it kind of like comes back to himself, and he'll put the goggles down and he'll stand up and he'll say, "I don't understand what I just found out."
Walk me through it.
The paper. Chrisellen, hi. How are you? I'm sorry.
It's good to see you, by the way.
No need. Hello. Good to see you as well.
The paper. I don't know if you've ever had to deal with this, but maybe given what you showed me earlier, it's a spell that requires for someone to touch another, and then through their hands they can conduct electricity onto that person.
Yep.
So that's what the scroll was. Could I find?
Sorry.
Hey. Could I tell if it was a permanent or a temporary? Like, because I would assume that there's a difference in talent of creator.
You talking about the scroll?
Yeah.
Scrolls themselves are very temporary. Sorry, they're permanent until used. So
Okay.
Yeah.
It does, I don't get any extra information there.
No. But the permanent versus temporary is the reason why you were able to identify so many details about the sword.
Okay, cool. And then I'll point to the pants. Go. Clearly was holding some type of magical item. That
wand,
I don't know.
Presumably.
I would assume so. But this, and I'll show the sword, and I'll say, it's been used quite frequently. It in of itself isn't magical, but it holds magic because it's been cast on it so much.
That sounds like a Gish sword.
Yeah, but it's not the arcane arts that I am of my previous life. I think this was stolen from a Gish, or worse, a traitor. I don't know though.
We need to go back and look at that body. We should see where sticks fell. Sorry, Priscilla. We took a look at 2 individuals who were killed, one of whom was slashed up viciously, and the other of whom was shot in the ass and then through the lung and then interrogated.
I shot him in the ass.
Oh, that dude's there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
How does he react because he just overheard?
He honestly wasn't really listening. He was over there
Okay.
kind of talking to Chrysalis.
Yeah.
But as you pulled Chrysalis into the conversation, because he's being very chatty with her. He's kind of like, hey. You know, he's, again, not being
Your
creepy,
dress.
But she's a pretty lady and is really nice. So
She would offer kind of a weak high five and be like, well, I imagine before we see this thing all the way through, I'll be seeing more than one body, so might as well start now.
You don't have to go in if you don't want to. They're not in the
It's
best
also
of
quite
shape.
cold in
If
there.
my eyes can help.
They might. We need to determine if the individual was a Maltese.
what?
Not the one you shot in the ass. The other one.
Okay.
Yes. Also, it would help to find out. You have great experience with this, to know what type of life they may have lived. If they were, like, a slave that was malnourished, or a well taken care of soldier, or maybe someone of more prominence. Because magical items are not easily gotten.
You were going to take us to where you shot him in the ass first, right?
I can also point out where I saw the other guy get cut up. It wasn't too far off.
That'd be great. That would help out a lot. We can start there and then
Let's
we can go
start
back.
there.
Yes, and we can go from there. And Griselda, if it's too much after that, then please don't hesitate to step away.
You're both human, right?
I will sooner excuse myself than evacuate myself.
I'm glad to hear that.
Ew.
Excellent.
So my apologies. You asked that these 2
They're
people
both
here-
human,
Yeah,
right?
these 2, like Chrysalin and this guy that you're talking to, are both human. Yes.
It might be best if we looked at the scene in the daylight. I can see fine when it's dark out, but you guys might be at a disadvantage.
Torches! We have torches!
If you'd like to.
I'd almost rather not raise the suspicion in the day. I know
Okay.
we're in a military town, but it's... The fewer eyes we have on this investigation, the better.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Well, honestly, it's a bit out of town. We gave him a good chase. It was over a mile.
Well, bit out of town, less of a concern. What do you think, Croissant?
I could go for a walk.
Let's go for a walk.
What's Chrysalin's pace like? Is she like walking through a mall with someone in heels, or does she actually keep pace with?
She's in great shape. She's in.
Well, what kind of boots she wearing? Are we talking like? Are we
She
talking
was
like?
wearing riding boots before, wasn't she?
Yeah, it would be riding boots.
Yeah.
It would be plenty comfortable.
The appropriate footwear for a woman of her stature is always riding boots. If you...
some of those riding boots come with leather and heels.
Yes, they do. Depends on the kind of riding you're doing today.
And they start walking. So while you guys are walking to go check that out, while you, of course, are trying to take advantage of the daylight because of the distance, you, of course, bring this guy with you. He's guiding you towards it. But any small talk or anything important that you feel like you need to chatter amongst one another, or just keep on going?
Oh, daffodils, huh?
Daffodils.
That young man, a master rank soldier. Daffodils. I think he might have been a little smitten.
I think I might be a little bummed.
Well, give it time. Sure you can fix that.
It's not normal for me to go this long without being properly seen to.
Ah. Well, Oscar looks to Laszlo and then looks back.
Laszlo's like in his own world talking. He's like mumbling in Gnomish.
Worry not, I will make no demands of my companions.
Oh, I'm not worried. He might be. Or, well. No.
Okay.
So was it a good read? The book you gave me the other day.
Oh. Right.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I learned, well, one thing.
It's always good to learn something new.
Agreed.
You guys eventually find your way over to where he is. He's like, I'll be honest, it was somewhere around here. All right, yeah. Right here, he was maybe a good 30 meters before hitting that oak right there. So I shot him in the ass. He only
He's
stumbled
getting more hick by the minute, and I love it.
He only stumbled forward maybe another 10 meters or so before he took the other shot in the lungs. He dropped a couple right after that. So we'll find him over there. The other one, I heard the fighting, but it was going right behind the tree line over here to the side. We're going to have to search exactly for that spot was, but I heard it and I saw the soldiers come out afterwards. So definitely over there. Why don't we, let me show you where this one was. And kind of like walking along, and there's not going to be blood splatter or anything like that here because, it's been 2 weeks. But he does
Are we
lead
safe
you...
presently? Are we safe presently?
You mean like around you? There's just the four of
Yeah, just the four. Well, just the four of us, but then nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah, you can roll a perception check if you're concerned about Scott leading you away from the towns that attack you.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, you always want to throw a perception check for something like that.
It's not very good, but there are 3 stunt points, so advantageous positioning times 3, please.
Can you multiply 3?
Yeah, you can do it as many times as you want to spend stunt points on.
Stunt can be used multiple times. God damn it! You discover advantageous position, which is what? A bonus to what? It's
essentially just you get more information than you normally would from that. It's not necessarily more successful, but there's more information, so you just gain things that might not have been what you were initially looking for.
I gotcha. All right, everybody else, perception checks to search.
I would be focusing on the path that this person might run.
Chriselle, it's probably because you walking along with that guy, maybe even arm in arm or very close to him. As he's kind of like telling these things, giving the directions and like pointing, you're seeing exactly where he's pointing, almost like you can see like where his eye is leading towards. So he's kind of like over here, and you kind of like walk off where he's pointing to, and you definitely find a spot where as you're like walking along, you stop and you see like a little glint of light, and when you bend down, you can see an arrow that at some point in time must have been pulled out of the guy that he was talking about. A couple steps forward, you can definitely see like a disturbance in the dirt that's there. I mean, again, it's been 2 weeks, so it would have rain or whatever would have filled it to a degree back, but you definitely found where that body had fallen, where that one guy.
Everyone. This is man in peril shaped.
That's really good. Oscar is standing a bit back, I guess, and he's taking in more of the scene right now than just the spot. He's actually looking for more of like where were skirmishes happening, where were fights happening, where would feet have been running to, where this, essentially trying to gather where that other fight might have been happening.
Yeah.
Essentially from
So while they're going over there and looking at this, you kind of like nod, Laszlo's on top of it, and you're going to keep looking on.
I'm not walking off. I am more looking at pathways for normal running paths and more like where in the tree line would this guy have been able to get to.
So I was actually going to give you, because you're a triple stun point there, I was actually going to give you something else in a moment anyways.
Please
so
do.
while they're kind of like searching, I'll get to you in 1 second.
Yes,
so you guys
please.
go up to that spot. Like I said, there's you pick up the arrow and then a couple steps forward.
I wouldn't touch the arrow. I would direct Laszlo to it.
You see it, and then like he said, almost like 10 meters after that, you see, even less than 10 meters after that, because it probably got shot in the ass and pulled it out. And then, you know what I mean?
Not a good idea.
Yeah. And then, and bolt, by the way, not arrow. And then you see that spot, you guys come over to investigate. What do you look for, Laszlo?
Initially, I'll just look in the area, and I'll look in the area to see, because the guy that was shot in the butt had the scroll. So the scroll had the parchment, but it would have been between two wooden, like, dowels, right? To hold it in place. I'm looking for those.
Actually, no. With how it was kind of rolled up into
it's just paper.
It's probably just paper, yeah. Which
Right,
probably
so-
was consumed by the spell, too.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just kick around and see if maybe he, just in case, I know the other guy probably had the wand, but just in case they might have handed it over, I'll just like kick the dirt around to see if there's any, like, a wand just sitting in it that might have been thought of as just a branch or a stick.
Sure. So you're looking specifically for wands or anything like that? Nothing like that, unfortunately,
Yeah.
sticks out for you. You can definitely see that this is a spot where, I mean, you're searching that spot, kicking around for anything. You can see definitely this is where the guy fell. You can see the arrow that would have been pulled out at one point in time from the guy's back. That's also lying on the ground, broken nearby. You also see 2 teeth on the ground, which makes sense for the guy was missing 2 teeth. So everything kind of checks out. This is definitely where Stick in the Mud had taken the shots and had taken some sort of face beating for one reason or another in the area. You can definitely find that, no question in your mind. Something else that catches your eye, because this is specifically what you had rolled for to look for beforehand, Laszlo, is you can see like the area. If people were to come, like you said, paths come running through here, they could have entered in any portion here. The trees are sparse at first and they get much more dense very quickly after that. Well, as the gentleman had said beforehand, behind the tree line. The tree line, again, it depending on where you are to the left or right ahead of you, is a little thicker or thinner, but definitely after you're past like 4 or 5 trees, it's gonna be hard to see anything anyways, because of how they would line up in your vision, your field of view. So anybody could have like run up across any direction here. So if all 12 of them were retreating back this way, they could have come not in single file or double file. They easily could have just sprinted into the woods.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You, however,
You're gonna remember
Oscar.
my name one day.
I
One
will.
day.
I know Will. I'm just trying not to do Will. I'm trying to do Oscar.
Yeah,
It's
I
funny
know.
because I actually knew an Oscar not too long ago, and he got fired from his job because he was sleeping with a lot of his subordinates. He was a friend of a friend that I used to get like good deals on cell phone stuff with, and he's no longer there, and so now I have to pay full price for cell phone stuff, and it sucks. But yeah. So I mean, I'm just saying, if you and the Chris Allen hook up, I'm gonna have to assume she's your subordinate. So you
Excuse me?
Oh, she is definitely a dom. I don't know what you're getting at.
She's whatever you fucking fancy, but she is certainly nobody's subordinate.
So anyways, you unless they're moissanite. So you are where you like, kind of like see them looking. As you get looking around, you happen to notice, as he said, they were kind of like beyond the tree line. As you looking in that area, I just described how the trees are more sparse or dense in different areas. By sheer coincidence, the spot where he pointed at the combat happening, now that you're standing where this was, it happens to be the most obscured spot. Once again, just where the trees happen to line up, you can't see anything beyond that point. It's like a blind spot into the woods there. Everything else you can at least see for a bit further, even upwards like 50 meters further, depending on exactly where it is that you're looking, right?
We have a blind spot. That's where the fight happens. Oscar starts walking.
Okay, you go off in that direction. Laszlo's here covering this. Chris Allen, do you go, because Laszlo's still searching, do you go off with him or do you stay with Laszlo?
I would go wherever the soldier went.
Okay.
Oscar takes his shield out as well, so this you may note that Oscar looks like he's preparing to be in combat.
Yeah,
presently.
he's picking his path and looking up as much as he's looking down. Chriselle, how do you approach?
I definitely have my crossbow on my hip, and I'm very aware of it, but only in the same kind of way where she's very aware of it anytime she has to walk back to the academy alone at night when there's maybe rowdy people about.
20 yards. Keep 20 yards if you're following.
Right.
Confusing for poor people as I'm switching to. I'm like, I'll try to use meters, and then you're like, I'm gonna go to yards, and I'm like,
Hey, I know yards.
those are almost the same thing.
Yeah.
For chat,
sure.
those are almost the same
Keep
thing.
18 meters back.
There you go. So anyways,
I don't know if that's the right conversion. Let's just run with it.
it could be 19.
Might be. It's close. It's really
They're
close.
still pretty close.
They're really
only
close.
a couple dozen.
Sure.
Yeah.
3 inches off each, so 18
Yeah.
or whatever. So anyways, you guys are moving, you're making your way into the tree line, trying to find out where this is that it's taking place. Both of you guys can make me perception checks at this point to see what you see.
Just so you know, it's 18.28.
There you go. So 18,
Yeah.
19, somewhere in there. A couple of inches can be a big deal. Indeed, sir. Indeed. And was Chris Ellen's perception, or did you already
It was
roll?
above. Chrysalis
Oh,
was above.
okay.
11,
I
yeah.
didn't hear both of them because it's probably simultaneous.
It was,
So,
they were pretty much right on top of each other.
okay, so as you guys are walking into the tree line, one of the things you notice, Laszlo, is at one point in time where you're looking down and kind of say, oh, yeah, and then you kind of like look up and you literally see Oscar's already out of view. And then all of a sudden, Chris Ellen gets to a point where she's half in view, half out of view, as she's standing on the other side of a tree, keeping a bit back from Oscar. Oscar perfectly inside that blind spot where you can't see anything. Oscar, however, with your beautiful 14 perception check, you notice movement in the woods.
How far?
A little bit ahead of you. Of course, trained soldier on alert, you know your head snaps up and we fade to break. So we'll be back in just a couple of moments, everybody, as we take a quick little break so that Doxy can puke her brains out and then come back and smile. Smile through it all for everybody. Thanks, Doxy. All right, see everybody.
Anytime, bud.